Hey guys, this is God of Politics, and before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. I will have all of those linked down in the description. But today's video, I'm going to explain why I think that the polls were actually right in 2016. That's what I'm going to argue for you. So, a lot of people, obviously, said that the polls were wrong in 2016 and therefore they don't trust the polling data for 2020, the polling data that shows Joe Biden currently up by around 6.5 points in states like the swing states. Obviously, Michigan, he's up by 4.4, Pennsylvania, he's up by 3.8, North Carolina, he's even up by 3.4, Arizona, he's up by 3.8. Florida, he's down by 1.3 to Trump. And Wisconsin, he is at a tie. That is just to go through. That is just an overall view at the polls for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. But people don't trust those because they say the 2016 polls were actually wrong. But I'm going to explain why I think that the polls were actually right in 2016. So first, we'll look at the national polls. The national polls had the RCP average has Clinton at 45.5, Trump at 42.2, Johnson at 4.7, and Jill Stein at 1.9. So if we look at the most recent poll here, for example, a Bloomberg poll here that had the undecided vote at 9%, meaning that there was a lot of undecided vote, but eventually it still ended up being accurate. We had obviously most of the polls here were around the 3 to 4 point range. The RCP average had Clinton plus 3.3, and the final results were plus 2.1. That is pretty much spot on. Obviously, the only thing they really underestimated was Gary Johnson's vote. Gary Johnson got less than what he was supposed to get, and Hillary Clinton actually got more than she was supposed to get, and Trump got more than they were supposed to get because of the undecided vote. So the undecided vote wasn't included in the polls, and we'll get to that a bit later. But to go to the state polls, the ones that are most pointed out as wrong, if we go to the state polls over here, this YEPMS map shows the polling data, the RCP polling average data of how the states would have gone. So Hillary Clinton's at 272 points, 272 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 266 electoral votes. So Donald Trump wins a lot of the major swing states: Arizona, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Iowa, Ohio, Maine's second district. He's even winning Nevada. Hillary Clinton is winning Wisconsin by a likely margin, Michigan by a lean margin, Pennsylvania by a lean margin, and Virginia by a lean margin. This is how it actually turned out. We say states like New Mexico and Colorado went more blue, states like Nevada went more blue, states like Texas went a bit more blue, states like Florida were a tiny bit more red, states like Arizona and New Hampshire were spot on pretty much. Actually, this is a tilt margin, but states like New Hampshire and Arizona were spot on. States like Virginia were basically spot on. It was just these three northeastern states, the three Midwestern states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, that are perceived as being wrong in the 2016 election. So if we look at the individual polling data from these states, first we'll look at Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is the state that is perceived as the most wrong. Obviously, the RCP average had Clinton at plus 6.5, but if we look at the most recent poll leading up to the election, it is a Republican poll, Remington Research, with a margin of error 1.9. We see Clinton's at 49, Trump's at 41, Gary Johnson is at 43. If you add that up, that is 93 percentage points, right? So there's still 7% undecided vote. If we look at this evaluation by American Association for Public Opinion Research, we see in these states that real change in vote preference during final week or so of the campaign. And about 13% of voters in Wisconsin, Florida, and Pennsylvania decided on their presidential vote choice in the final week. So you see in this that there's a 7% undecided vote. The actual vote of the last week, which this is before the last week, the election day was on November 8th. The most recent polling, there was only one poll in November, and it was from the 1st to the 2nd. So that last week isn't even included in this. So the 13% of voters decided in the last week. This has it at 17%. 7% is actually 13%. And of those 13% in Wisconsin, Florida, and Pennsylvania who decided in the last week, they broke for Trump by 30 points in Wisconsin. That is why we see that the polls are perceived as being the most often Wisconsin, whereas in states like Florida, they're actually pretty much spot on. And if we look at Wisconsin, for example, the only poll that was done in November was the Republican poll from the 1st to the 2nd, where we see that Hillary Clinton was at 49, Trump's at 41, Gary Johnson is at 3. We see that if you give all of the undecided vote, Trump is within the margin of error here, and that's basically what happened. We see that the undecided vote, that's what happened. If we do it with this poll too, we can see if I just 50, 54, sorry, 82, 89. Okay, so this poll also has 9 percentage points undecided vote. Hillary Clinton, so 9% undecided vote. Hillary Clinton's up by 6 points with a margin of error already at 4.4. You bring that down, that's at 1.6 margin if you have the full extent of the large margin of error, and there is still 9% undecided vote. And as we know that this evaluation proved that the voters who decided late, which was 13% of voters in states like Wisconsin, Florida, and Pennsylvania, they overwhelmingly went to Trump in the state that had the worst polling data. So the polls themselves did not have any issue with them for the most part. Sure, some polls might have undersampled non-college educated whites. Some polls would have oversampled college educated whites. That was Hillary Clinton's strength. But if you look at it overall, the polls weren't actually that off. If we look at states like Florida, we see Trump was up by 0.2. Trump in the polling, Trump won by 1.2. We said that the most recent poll had Trump, the Trafalgar Group, which is a Republican poll, had Trump up by 4 points in a lot of these polls. And that's basically what happened. We see that there is a late surge from Donald Trump for where a lot of the polls didn't catch it. The end of October, Clinton and Trump are basically tied. And we see that at the end there is a surge of them, and right at the end, there is a drop of Hillary Clinton's support because of this late vote that went to Donald Trump. So you can't say that there's a problem inherently themselves with the polling data. The problem is that these people were making decisions at the last second, and we had a lot of events going on in the last week. We had the reopening of the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton, which led a lot of voters to say, okay, that's the last straw. I'm going to go vote for Donald Trump. And that's what happened to a lot of people. These late deciding voters that really could have decided even at the ballot box obviously are not going to be caught up in the polls. If we look at Michigan, for example, the most recent poll in Michigan was the 6th of November, 2 days before, and that poll had Trump up. The only poll before that was the 3rd to the 4th, which has Hillary Clinton ahead by 5 with a margin of error of 3.2. If you put it into the margin of error, Hillary Clinton is up by less than 2 points, and that is also with 5% undecided vote. And as I said before, if we look at this data, the undecided vote went to Donald Trump overwhelmingly over Hillary Clinton. And obviously it does say that there is underrepresentation of non-college educated white voters and an overrepresentation of college graduates. That makes less of an impact, in my opinion, than the fact that these voters make last-second decisions. That may not happen this time. You may not see last-second decisions because of the fact that it's no longer an open election. You know who Donald Trump is. You know who Joe Biden is. I am predicting people are going to make their decisions a lot earlier than they did last time because people will know what is going on, who these candidates are, what they believe in. Hillary Clinton was perceived as corrupt, and the opening of the FBI investigation, the reopening of the FBI investigation, was the last straw for many people. And many of the people that made their decision after that happened, they said, okay, I'm going from Clinton to Trump, or I'm going from undecided to Trump, were not caught up in polls from states that hadn't done any polls a week before the election. So sure, if the election was held a week earlier and people hadn't made last-second decisions, Hillary Clinton could have easily won because these polls probably would have been accurate. Not a single poll had it even very close. But Trump did have a late surge because of that undecided vote. Will that happen this time? That is another question we'll have to answer. In 2012, obviously, we saw that a lot of the undecided vote split to go to the incumbent. Not split, but it went to the incumbent Barack Obama over Mitt Romney. That is why Barack Obama was able to win in states like Florida, where he was actually down in the polls. And sure, you could argue that there are some mishaps in the polling data that we could fix, but knowing how much scrutiny there was and criticism there was of polling after the 2016 election, you would assume that the necessary reforms have been made to ensure that there will be at least more accurate results than last time. And like I said before, I feel like there will be less last-second decisions this time than there were last time. Looking at, again, the differences in the polling, we see Trump wins more in states like Iowa and Ohio. he wins less, obviously he even loses states like Nevada, and Hillary Clinton wins more in states like New Mexico and Colorado. But these are all within the margin of error that we have to remember. Margin of error is still a thing that exists in polls, and so there is all this confusion around polls saying that they're all wrong. But I disagree. I believe that polls are actually a good metric in determining how they are going to actually have results in the election. But we will see how many undecided voters there are. There are just a number of other factors other than the polls themselves that were wrong in the 2016 election, and that is what I wanted to clear up. But thank you all for watching this video. Please like and subscribe as always, and I will see you guys later.